The needle hissed, a viper of chrome and glass sinking into the jagged scar tissue of Darby's neck. The pain wasn't sharp. It was geologic, a shifting of tectonic plates beneath his skin as the isotope X9 flooded his jugular. He gasped, the air in the cramped airlock tasting of recycled ozone in desperate prayer. 1 hour. That was the bargain. The biochronometer embedded in his wrist flared to life, projecting a holographic countdown in harsh crimson light. 59 to 59. His body was already dying. The isotope was a corrosive fuel, burning his cellular structure to power a temporal phase shift. For the next 60 minutes, Darby existed slightly out of sync with the standard universal clock of the synapse citadel. He was a ghost with a shotgun, a phantom bleeding radiation. For Indera, he whispered, the name scraping against a throat raw from years of silence. The airlock cycled. The blast doors groaned open, revealing the cavernous, vaulted hangar of Praetor Silas's orbital fortress. The citadel was a monstrosity of obsidian metal and pulsing bioluminescence, suspended in the gravity well of a dying neutron star. Darby didn't walk. He blurred. The phase shift allowed him to move with terrifying kinetic potential. 2 guards, hulking brutes encased in chitinous ceramide armor, known as the Varangian Sentinels, stood by the maglev transport. They barely registered the disturbance in the air before Darby was upon them. 58 to 40. He didn't use a blade. He used a gravity displacement hammer, a heavy, crude tool of mining colonies. He swung it with the momentum of a falling asteroid. The first Sentinel's helmet crumpled inward with the sound of a crushing soda can. The second raised a plasma carbine, but Darby sidestepped the bolt, the heat singing his ear, and drove the hammer into the guard's knee joint, then the thorax. Silence returned to the hangar, save for the rhythmic thrumming of the station's engines. Darby checked the wrist display. 58 to 12. Too slow. He was savoring the violence. He had to be surgical. He sprinted toward the lift shafts, his boots magnetizing to the deck plates. The layout of the synapse citadel was burned into his hippocampus, stolen from the mind of a defecting neural architect named Jonton 3 cycles ago. He knew the path. The Praetor would be in the apex chamber, observing the harvesting of the nebula clouds. The lift shaft was guarded by a localized energy grid. Darby didn't have the codes. He retrieved a localized EMP spike from his bandolier and jammed it into the console. Sparks showered him, searing his cheek. The grid flickered and died. He pried the doors open and looked up. The shaft stretched for kilometers, a throat of metal leading to the brain of the beast. He didn't wait for a car. He activated his mag grapples and began to climb, hauling himself up hand over hand, his muscles screaming against the burn of the isotope. 50:00. 10 minutes gone. His vision blurred, a kaleidoscope of violet fractal patterns swimming at the edges of his sight. The first symptom of neural degradation. The isotope was eating his memories to sustain the adrenaline. He tried to focus on Indera's face, her iridescent scales, the way her eyes held the starlight of the Crom home world. The image was grainy, static-filled. Focus, he snarled, swinging upward. At the mid-level security juncture, the resistance stiffened. A squad of Silas's elite Praetorians, the dreaded Nyx Vipers, waited. They were slender, cybernetically enhanced assassins with optical camouflage. Darby hauled himself onto the platform, breathing hard. The corridor seemed empty, but the hairs on his arms stood up. The air displaced slightly to his left. He ducked instantly. A monofilament whip sliced the space where his neck had been. 45 to 30. Darby rolled, pulling a scatter gun from his hip. He fired blindly into the shimmer. A scream of digital distortion erupted as the slug impacted a cloaking field. Blood, bright blue and viscous, splattered the floor. The Nyx Viper materialized, clutching a shattered abdomen. 3 more decloaked, rushing him. Darby dropped the hammer and drew a second scatter gun. It was a dance of muzzle flashes and desperate parries. He took a blade to the shoulder, the ceramic edge carving through his flight suit and biting into flesh. He didn't feel it. The isotope masked all pain, converting trauma into manic energy. He blasted the second Viper in the faceplate, kicked the third into the open lift shaft, and grapple-hooked the fourth, slamming the assassin into the bulkhead. 40-15. He stood amidst the carnage, chest heaving. The wound in his shoulder was weeping black fluid, a side effect of his altered biology. He was rotting from the inside out. He picked up his hammer and limped toward the hyper-tram. The tram ride was the longest 3 minutes of his life. He watched the countdown. 37. 00. 36. 00. 35. 00. Every second was a heartbeat of the universe he was about to extinguish. He checked his ammunition. 2 shells left. The hammer was cracking. The tram slowed. The doors hissed open to the upper sanctum. Here, the architecture changed. It was no longer industrial, it was ecclesiastical. Statues of Praetor Silas, carved from weeping marble, lined the halls. Banners of silk hung from the ceiling, depicting the burning of the Crom worlds. Darby felt a surge of bile. He remembered the smell of burning atmosphere, the screams of the hatchlings. Suddenly, the corridor twisted. The floor became the ceiling. Gravity inverted. The distortion field, Darby muttered. Silas's personal defense. The Praetor warped physics around him to disorient attackers. Darby's boots lost grip, and he fell toward the chandelier, which was now the floor. He twisted in mid-air, firing his mag grapple at a pillar. The cable pulled taut, swinging him through the disorientation. 30. 00. Halfway. He landed on a walkway, vertigo assaulting him. His nose began to bleed. The isotope was liquefying his capillaries. He wiped the blood away and pressed on. The doors to the apex chamber were massive, made of a gold titanium alloy. They were sealed. Darby placed his hands on the metal. He didn't have explosives strong enough for this, but he had the isotope. He routed the energy from his suit's life support directly into his gauntlets, overcharging the kinetic servos. He was sacrificing his oxygen reserves for strength. With a primal scream that tore his vocal cords, he pried the doors apart. The metal groaned, screamed, and finally yielded. 2000. The apex chamber was a dome of glass overlooking the cosmos. In the center, on a throne of floating data clusters, sat Praetor Silas. The Praetor was beautiful and terrible. He was a post-human entity, his skin replaced by a shimmering, translucent lattice that revealed the pulsating energy core within his chest. He didn't look up from the data stream he was manipulating. "You are loud, Darby." Silas's voice resonated not in the air, but directly inside Darby's skull. "Telepathy. And you are late." "I have 20 minutes, Darby spat, stepping into the room. The air was thin here. Cold. Silas turned. His eyes voids of swirling black matter. "You have 20 minutes of consciousness. But your body died 10 minutes ago. You're merely a corpse propelled by will and poison. Dead enough to kill you." Darby charged. Silas raised a hand. A wall of force slammed into Darby, throwing him backward across the polished floor. He slid, crashing into a console. 1845. "You think this is vengeance?" Silas floated from his throne, his feet hovering inches above the ground. "I cleansed your people to save the sector from overpopulation and resource collapse. It was an equation. A necessary subtraction. My daughter was not a subtraction," Darby roared. He fired his last 2 shotgun shells. Silas caught the slugs in mid-air with a gesture, dissolving them into dust. "Sentimental biology. This is why you are extinct." Darby scrambled to his feet, abandoning the gun. He hefted the hammer. He needed to get close. The distortion field flared, shifting the room's geometry again. The floor tilted 90 degrees. Darby slid toward the glass wall, toward the vacuum of space. He slammed his mag boots down, locking him in place on the vertical surface. He was standing on the window now, the neutron star blazing beneath his feet. Silas floated down toward him, a god descending to judge a worm. 10 o'clock. Darby felt his heart fluttering. "Arrhythmia. The end was near. Why do you persist?" Silas asked, curiosity coloring his mental tone. "There is no survival for you. Even if you strike me down, the station's automated systems will incinerate you. I don't need to survive. Darby gritted out, blood coating his teeth. I just need to make sure you don't. He disengaged his mag boots and launched himself off the glass, flying through the zero-G pocket toward the Praetor. Silas scoffed and unleashed a blast of psionic energy. Darby took the hit. He felt his ribs snap, his internal organs rupture. But the momentum carried him. He collided with Silas, tackling the floating warlord. They tumbled through the air, crashing onto the ceiling now floor. Darby pinned Silas down, raising the hammer. Silas's hand shot up, gripping Darby's throat. The Praetor's strength was absolute. Futile. 5 o'clock. Darby's vision was tunneling. He could only see the glowing core in Silas's chest. The Praetor's life support. You calculated everything, Silas, Darby wheezed, his voice failing. But you forgot. The variable. What variable? The isotope. Isn't just a fuel. Darby triggered the overload sequence on his wrist unit. The biochronometer flashed rapidly. He wasn't just counting down time, he was accumulating chronal energy. He had turned his own body into a dirty bomb of temporal radiation. Silas's eyes widened. Fear. For the first time, fear. You'll erase us both from the timeline. A paradox. Exactly. Darby smiled, blood bubbling on his lips. 1 o'clock. No. Silas shrieked, thrashing, trying to throw Darby off. But the Avenger held on with the grip of the dead. 0:30. Look at me. Darby whispered. Look at the man you subtracted. Silas stared into Darby's eyes and saw the abyss. 0:10. Darby closed his eyes. He saw Indira. She was smiling, holding out a hand in a field of violet grass. The pain faded. The anger faded. There was only the white noise of peace. 0:03. 0:02. 0:01. Goodbye. 0:100. A flash of white light, silent and absolute, swallowed the apex chamber. It didn't explode outward. It imploded inward, folding space and time into a singularity. The synapse citadel vanished, not destroyed, but unwritten. In the void where the station had been, the neutron star continued to burn, indifferent and eternal. The timeline healed over the scar, leaving not even a memory of the vengeance, nor the crime that birthed it.